Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Friday to you today. I hope everyone is doing well today on this very windy and stormy Friday. If you are here and joining us promptly on time at high noon UK time, 1 o'clock Hamburg, Germany time, please do pop a hello into the comments. We love to see who's joining us. Hi, Barry. Nice to see you. And give us a shout. Let us know that you are here and joining us. The more, the merrier. So my name is Sarah. I am super excited to be here with you today and with the very lovely and talented Arden creative community. I'm super excited because this is my first time doing a live with Arden. So now that we've got all the buttons and bells and whistles worked out, we think. I can see folks joining in, so this is wonderful. And I'm also really excited because today I get to talk about one of my very favorite scrapbooking themes, which is heritage. And I was thinking about this morning. I have done probably all of the scrapbook pages that I have done, or scrapbook albums that I've done. Out of all of those, and it's been many, many years of scrapbooking, I think that the one that I've done the most is heritage. And it's really a near and dear to my heart to create heritage pages and albums. But I also realized that all of the ones I've done, I have given away as gifts. So now I'm looking forward to, with the start of this album page that I'll show you today, I am going to start making some more pages that are just for me. Hi, Liz. Nice to see you. Great to see everybody popping in. Thanks for joining us today. I was just talking a little bit about how much I love doing heritage albums. And so I'm excited about sharing a scrapbook page with you today. I'm going to hold it up briefly and you can take a look. Whoop, there's my ring light in there. But also, I think you can see in here the album page photos. I've got some journaling on here. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm also going to share with you how to put together a little folded envelope that you can use for memorabilia or tuck in some ephemera and some fun things like that. Also today, when we're looking at, as I'm stepping through the album page, I will also share with you a little bit of my experience in terms of getting photos together, especially heritage, in terms of a heritage theme. Sometimes you just don't have a lot of photos to pull from. What you can do in that case, and also talk a little bit about journaling, a subject that either people love it or it makes them really nervous because they think they have to write really wonderful prose. You don't. Just a few details can be just all that you need to create a really wonderful and meaningful heritage page. So what I'm going to do now is angle down my camera and we can get into the demo. So once again, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Pop into the chat, please, if you will. Let us know that you're here. And if you can also let us know too, let me know if you have done any heritage albums of your own. Alrighty, and I think you can see the page here. It looks like on my camera, let me know if you are seeing this in reverse, if you're seeing the text reading like a mirror view. I realize on my end, I'm not able to change that mirror view. Let me have a look. Nope, I don't think this is a good time for me to just randomly push buttons. So I'm going to go with this, but I think we can get the gist of this and we can still continue working our way through. So a couple of things that I want to point out here too. When I start with my album pages, I like to pull all of my materials together before I start laying things out. I also do keep in mind too the overall theme and the mood that I want to set with the page. itself. So in this case, I really liked having these nice warm brown tones with the patterned papers. And I thought that keeping it nice and simple would be a good way to go about this with a heritage page and a military page in particular. And I see Julie's joined us. Oh, from Australia. You know what? Julie, this is a real coincidence. I was talking about some of the scrapbook pages and albums that I've made as gifts for folks, and one of those albums was for a cousin of mine who lives in Melbourne, Australia, and it really meant a lot to her because she grew up on the other side of the world from us in the U.S., and so it was really meaningful to her to have that little bit of her family history when we're all so far apart. So with all of those wonderful scrapbook pages, loving to share them. One way that we can share them actually as a group is through the Remembering Our Hero project that Arden is hosting, which I'm really excited about, which is where everybody is invited to create a single heritage scrapbook page and post. And we'll include some more details in the chat about how you can join in on that too. All righty. Hi, Michaela. She's also joined in. It is reversed. I'm so sorry about that. I hope that we can, well, I'll share a photo of this afterwards as well, unless anybody has a bright idea for me changing it around. If not, I'm just going to continue going on as we've started. Okay, so I'm going to start with my two photographs here, and I'm going to bring these in. As I do this, though, I wanted to point out, this is the pattern paper that I'm using today. So this is from the Remembering collection from Arden. All of the papers and ephemera that I'm working with today are going to be from Arden. And as you can see here, you've got a lot of different paper options to go with. I really love these warm tones in here. So these are the papers that I'm going to be using for my background. Now, with my photos themselves, so I've printed off two photos, and I have to say, I don't have a lot of our heritage photos to hand, but there is somebody in my family, my big brother, who's in charge of all of the photos. He has scanned in all of our heritage photos, scanned them in and labeled them. And so when I was working on this project, I emailed him. He lives in the US, I live in Germany, and I said, can you send me some photos of Dad, maybe some of his military photos? And so he goes, yeah, I can do that tonight. So through the wonders of modern technology, I was able to get these photos pretty much immediately. Now, I don't have a photo printer at home, but I did find that at our local drugstore, you can print out, they've got all of these photo printing kiosks, and you can print out your photos, lots of different sizes, lots of different options for doing any kind of altering and editing if you want. And as I was printing these out, I thought, instead of doing them as the black and white that they normally come in, I'm going to print them off in sepia. And I really like this with those warm tones of those patterned papers. And I just thought this would be really a perfect way to create a heritage page that was reflective of my dad, and also that it really comes together nicely in terms of those colors. Okay, so I'm starting with my photos. I've got one large and one smaller one. Now this photo in particular, I have this trimmed down. With this photo here, I've printed it off and I left quite a lot of the white around the outside edge here because I like having that white kind of brighten up the image that we've got here. And so then this is measuring, it's about 5.5 inches this way and 7 3/4 inches going this way. So it's a nice large photo for my 12 by 12 page. This is a kind of standard 4 by 6 photo, also of my dad. And I have not seen this photo before, so my brother really surprised me with it. And I thought, you know, I could just put the two of them together like so. But I also realized that we're missing like the top of his very cool hat here and also down here at the bottom, his feet. So I'm going to trim this down a little bit more too, because I think this can, again, create some interest on the page as well. So when I do this, I like to start with matting my photos. And I'm going to show you with some of the pattern paper that I'm working with. Let me get my papers all together here. And this is the main background sheet that I'm using, which is a beautiful grid design. And I think this just looks so nice because not only does it have the straight line pattern on here, it's also got some kind of faux texturing going on in the background. Now, if I take my photos and I just pop them right down, I think they look fine. They look good. But let's take a look at what happens when you add a photo mat. So with this one in particular, I'm just going to pop this down and put it onto a piece of brown cardstock. And immediately I've got a frame going around here. And the frame is a really nice way of separating the image that's in the photo from the patterned background paper. I think it's kind of like if you have wallpaper on your wall and then you hang a photo up. If you put it in a frame, then it helps to stand out from that backing. Now, if I take another piece of pattern paper, and this is beautiful on both sides, either way could go, and I put this like so on here, it stands out even more. And this is the last one, I promise. If I add in a third mat, then I've even got more of the color difference, and I'm picking up some tones in the image itself, but I've also got some nice contrast, especially with that white background. So this is a really nice way of helping your photos to stand out from that patterned background paper. So you can really see the difference between the two of these here. So what I'm going to do is grab my tape runner, and I'm just going to mat up our large photo. And normally when I'm doing this at home, I'll use a double-sided tape. But for today, I'm just going to use a quick tape runner and position this down. Now with the cardstock that I'm working with, it is a beautiful, nice, sturdy cardstock. It's textured on one side and it's smooth on the other side. I'm using the textured side up because I love this texture. I don't think you can see it in the camera, but if you could touch it, you would feel it. It's just really beautiful. So textured on the one side, totally smooth on the other. And the smooth side is going to really come in handy when I do some computer journaling. And I'll walk you through that as well. But it's a great way to get the smooth side, will be a nice surface for our journaling. Okay, so I've got my photo on here ready to go. And for the second photo, as I mentioned, we're going to trim him down a little bit. I will point out I have never seen my father in flip-flops ever in his life. So it was a surprising photo because I'd never seen it before. And I was like, what is my dad wearing? Amazing. So in this case, instead of just trimming it down with my paper trimmer, which I definitely could do, I'm going to take one of these paper frames. So this is an ephemera frame from the ephemera pack. And you can see here, there's lots of frames. Well, I think there's 3 or 4 frames inside here. Here's another one, a little bit more ornate than what I would use for this. But what I'm going to do is position this so that I'm able to get most of the top of his head, and it doesn't look quite so blunt with that cutoff edge. So I'm going to position this like so. I love my foam tape, especially for creating some depth and dimension on here. So I've got some foam tape going around here, and I'm just going to pull off the liner on here and then position it down to give a nice bit of dimension. Now you could glue it straight down. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do like to get a little bit of extra depth. And the foam tape does this perfectly. So I've just cut it apart and walked it around the outside edge of the frame. Now, because the top of this will extend past the top of the photo, I'm going to leave this I'll leave it lined. I was trying to figure out how to say unlined, but that's not going to work. Okay, and then I'll position this down just like so. Smooth it down, and then grab my scissors and trim around the outside edge of this. And I don't know if you guys have been scrapbooking for as long as I have. Feels like I've been doing it for a very long time. You may remember the olden days of cutting your photos into shapes, like we use templates and pencils and rulers to cut apart sometimes original photos. Yikes. So this is also really wonderful, a great way to kind of get some creativity in when you know that you can reprint your photos, especially these heritage photos that we often work with, and you can mix and match different types of creative techniques without worrying about what you're doing to that original photograph. Okay, so now I've got the two of the photos, and I could simply pop the two of these together, and I think this would also make a really nice album page. You could add some journaling on here if you want. But instead, I'm going to keep going. I know with this photo that I wanted to add some decoration up here at the top as well as down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do my rub-on up here at the top while I am kind of in the middle of, or in the process of this. So I've got a little bit of this rub-on here, which is coming from the rub-on transfer set. I love a good rub-on, and this has not only some nice decorative elements, but also some really nice background pieces. And I've got one of the sheets out like so. So you've got your image on one side and you've got a liner on here. I'm going to take a little bit of this portion of the map and I'll just cut it with my scissors, because you can use the entire piece or you can trim it apart to use just portions of it. And set that aside. And then I know I want to have a straight edge here. I know I want to have some embellishments up here in the top corner. So I'll leave room for those and take off that liner and just align this up with the even edge of my photo. The rub-ons come with a stick. We call it a popsicle stick. You may call it a lolly stick, I think, in the UK. Wooden stick, craft stick, whatever you happen to call it. There's one included. You can also use your bone folder for this and just burnish that image down. And the nice thing is you can lift this up and just double check, make sure everything has transferred. If it hasn't totally transferred, then you can just pop this back down and keep going until it's all there. But they're fantastic quality. And so voila, there we go. So I've got this down in place and I'm going to set this off to one side. I'm going to set this off to one side just while we look at creating the rest of the background here. So I'm going to bring back in some more papers and cardstock. I love pattern papers. I love cardstock. I don't think I'm the only one who's a little bit of a paper fanatic. But when I see beautiful paper like this, it just makes me so happy. So here again, we've got another really gorgeous all over design. It's got some sort of faux texture on here, which I think is really beautiful. This could be my background paper as is, right? So I could just pop this down here, add my small photo and call it good. That would be beautiful. I can also incorporate in some additional colors. So here I've got a really nice warm brown, again, textured on one side, smooth on the other. I'm going to pop that down. Then I'm going to add a lighter tone on top. So I've started with my 12 by 12 and I've trimmed down the other 12 by 12 papers just slightly smaller, progressively so. And then I can add this grid paper on top of this. And then I can put my photo, my matted photo on top of that. Now, I can simply glue them all together as they are. I like to add a little bit of shading around this pattern paper. So I'm just going to grab a dye-based ink pad and ink around the outside edges. And a dye-based ink pad will dry really quickly, unlike a pigment ink pad. Pigment is usually a bit juicier. So you can definitely use it, of course, but give it some time to dry before you start gluing things together, just to make sure that you don't accidentally get ink where you don't want it to go. And anybody who does stamping knows that that is pretty easy to have happen. So I'm just kind of shuffling my ink pad around on the edges here. This is one I use a lot. It's a nice warm color. It's called Velvet Fawn. And so that's going to work on here really nicely with the rest of my colors. So working from the top up, I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down. You can see on the other side, this is also really beautiful. Here's the reading it the right way. So you got some sheet music on here, some text, and some overlaid photographs, which are also just beautiful. Turn this around. And I think this is also a really timely theme of scrapbooking, because for those who are in the US, you know, November 11th, we're coming up on Veterans Day. For those in the UK, November 11th is your Remembrance Day, which is really lovely to see everyone with their red poppies. And across the US, we have in the cemeteries, you'll also see a lot of really tiny American flags, which is quite a moving image to see. My dad was a career military officer in the US Army, and so it's a day that holds some special significance to us. He served for many years and retired when I was about 5 or 6 years old. So it's how he met my mom when he was stationed in Berlin and met a young German girl, and they got married and moved to the United States and had a family there. So this theme has a nice place in my heart. Okay, so I've got all of my background pieces put together here, and then I can go ahead and start playing with the positioning of my other elements. And my photo is not staying down here as much as I would like it to, so let me just add a little more adhesive on here so he doesn't drive away, I guess. Alrighty, so I've got these elements popped down like so. I'm going to move this back in so you can see it a little bit better. Now again, throughout any part of this process, the page could have been finished. I'm just adding in some additional elements here. And what I'd like to add in is a couple of embellishments when we get to the end, but I also like to work in a little bit of journaling. Now, I remember when I've taught heritage scrapbooking classes in the past, one thing is always tricky is journaling, especially because the photos are not necessarily of you. So it's tricky to know. It's hard to know what my dad was thinking here or here. And also hard to sort of make an assumption on that. Also, sometimes you just don't know what year it was the photo was taken. You don't know even necessarily where the person was. In this case, I do know that my dad was in Vietnam. Like many young American men, he was drafted and did 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. He is younger than I am in these photos, which is kind of like a little bit of a wow to think about going through something quite like that, quite as significant as that. And 2 little kids at home too, you can imagine. So what I wanted to include in here was a page title with the location of where he was. I do know that my dad wrote home lots of letters, like many military service people. And my mom has those letters. So he wrote letters home to her, and he also wrote letters home to my older sister. And when you're journaling with correspondence, that correspondence may not be something that you want to like unfold and put on the page for everyone to see. In a case like that, you may want to make a photocopy of it and tuck it into, for example, an envelope, something like this. And so I was thinking, okay, I'll create a little folded envelope and I'll put some ephemera in here for now. And then next time I see my mom, I can make a photocopy of some of those postcards or letters and even just tuck those in there. So I have them in my album, but they're not out. I hope that makes sense. I think you see what I'm saying. Like to be able to keep some things a little bit personal if you want to. So let's talk about our little envelope here. I've got another one that I folded up from some pattern paper. So you can see what it looks like without all of the elements tucked inside. Technically, it is an origami envelope, but it's a really simple one. So it's easy to do. Okay, I'm going to move aside these things and bring in a piece of my pattern paper. Now, trim this down to be 8 inches square. It can be any size, but a square shape is going to be the shape that you want to go with. I'm going to turn this as a diamond. So this is that same grid paper. On the other side is a really beautiful photo and script text on here. And what I'm going to do is work with the side that I want to have facing up. And I'm going to bring these two tips together. I'm going to fold these two right up like so and crease this line. I do have a bone folder on hand. This is really going to come in handy because this cardstock, pattern cardstock, is beautifully thick and wonderful, and a bone folder will help it to lay nice and flat. Okay, so I've got this going together like so. Turn it around, you can see a little bit better. And from here, I'm going to measure from the tip of my triangle. I'm going to measure 2 3/4 inches from the tip along to the side. I'm speaking in inches. I'm sorry, I don't know the metric system. Despite being in Germany for 7 years, it's still a little tricky for me. So I'm going to go 2 3/4 inches, and I'll just make a little pencil mark there. And then same thing over on the other side, 2 3/4 inches. And from here, I'm going to fold this from that pencil marking so that it's aligned with the bottom of my triangle. Oops. Fold this, and then I'll unfold it so you can see. Okay, bone folder at the ready, going through 4 layers of cardstock. So it's going to go like so. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on the other side. So from my marking piece over here, and then just angle this right over. And again, just score that up. Now, what I can do is just leave the 2 sides like so. I could glue it down if I wanted to, but because I've got this little pocket in here, I can tuck one side into the other. Let's see if I can fluff this out. You can see how that goes. So that will hold everything together. Now, if I wanted to, I could fold this down, but I want to have that open so that I'm able to tuck in some elements there. I see someone else has joined. Good morning. I'm assuming that you are in Ireland according to your name. So a very good morning to you, or good afternoon, just depending on where everyone is. Nice to see folks jumping in too. So welcome. So I've just created a really simple origami folded envelope. And this is wonderful if you're working with double-sided pattern papers, that you're able to get some really fun and pretty variety in here. I'll show you this one that I also did with some of the remembering papers. This is an all over print, so I'm going to get the same design all over on every panel here and also on the back. So you've got lots of options with this. This would also be nice on a card too. Okay, I'm going to put this one to one side and bring back in my halfway done page. Get this angled in here. Okay, so we've got our large matted photo, we've got our small matted photo, and now the envelope. And I'm going to ink around the outside edges of this envelope too, also with that brown ink pad, just to create a little bit of dimension in there, a little bit more depth. Now, before I start gluing everything in place, I wanted to also add, I know I want embellishments up here at the top corner. And so in that case, it's also nice to include something down here to create a little bit of balance. So I'm going to go back to those rub-ons. And here's a portion. I've already used some of the script here. I'm going to use the rest of it. And just chop this out, that backing piece. So this is some beautiful script, and I think it goes nicely with the theme of postcards and letters from distant lands. I'm going to pull this off and kind of position it here. Now I've got a grid on my pattern paper, so it's helping me to align my script on here nicely too. Smooth this down. Again, use either that popsicle stick, or you can also use your bone folder, the same one that I used for my envelope. I can use it here too. And pull this up. There we go. I just love this. I love the delicacy and the detail of something so simple, and it just adds a really beautiful look. So I'm going to position my photo on here, and then I know I also want to have my envelope down on here as well. So things are looking pretty good so far. I'm going to go ahead and glue my photos down now. And as I'm gluing this down, just say a welcome to those who have joined. Thelma's in Michigan. Thelma, that is where my dad is from, and this is who we're looking at right now. So you can imagine that this is really nice. I've had somebody joining from Australia and also now from Michigan. So very, very near and dear to my heart. Lisa, hi, nice to see you. Sorry you're late. It's fine, it's fine. We're glad that you're here. We're happy folks are joining. Okay, I'm going to glue down my envelope here too, and have this slightly overlapping. And I've glued these two pieces down at an angle. And when I was laying out my original page, I really kind of played with, do I want the photos straight down? Do I want them at an angle? One at an angle, one straight down. And I decided to angle them both in. So I got elements that are pointing inward into the center of the page. And I like that, creating a balance, because I've got lots of lines. It's a very linear layout. You know, I've got a square and a square and a square and a rectangle. The oval does also help to soften that a little bit. So if you're trying to think of how you can create some variety on either a scrapbook page or a card, creating a nice variety of shapes is one way that you can do that. Okay, before I put him down, I'm going to tuck in some ephemera. I've got some little ephemera pieces here. Got some tickets and a postcard. Let's see, what else do I have here? And another ticket. And these are going to be my placeholders. At some point, maybe I'll be able to tuck in some of those actual letters that my dad wrote. And until then, I've got some nice ephemera elements that can just be tucked right inside my envelope here. Let's see, position this around this way. And, you know, this is a nice way to have any kind of flat memorabilia that you may have from those heritage photos and memories that you may have in that great big box in the attic, like was for us before my brother scanned in all of those photos. Thank you, John, for doing that. Okay, so I've got my ephemera tucked in here. Again, I can slide in some letters or anything else I might want to have on there. And then I'm going to put on top my oval matted photo. Doesn't look so great from the back. That is okay. And tuck this down, lightly overlapping. Give a little bit more. And I've also added in some additional journaling elements here, so we can start to see how this is coming together. Now, I do want to include who he is on here, so I've got some additional ephemera pieces, including a little word that says dad. So because I've got lots of layers here with the foam tape, I've added another bit of foam tape just on one side here of my dad label. I'm going to pop that down. And then add just a little bit here on the side to get that to stay down. Alrighty, so I've got my label on here. I've got my ephemera, envelope, small photo, large photo. From here, I can go ahead and add other elements too. Now, I've got my rub-on going on up at the top corner, and I wanted to add some additional elements up there too. So in that ephemera pack, I've got some really cool cogs and gears and mechanical things, which just all went really well with the photo. And so I've got this one that I'm going to position like so up in the corner, overlapping my rub-on. I've got another one that's going to go here. I've got a little bit of foam tape on the back. And then I've also got a lock positioned on here too. Now, on my original album page, I added in some jute twine here just as a little touch right here and also down here on my envelope. So that's another option for you. Let's take a look at what it looks like without it though. So we'll do our main piece. Again, overlapping. I like to add overlapping elements. I think it really helps to draw the eye through the page. And this goes, of course, for your scrapbook pages and cards, whatever kind of paper craft you're doing. The rule of uneven numbers is what I'm using here too. So I've got my rule of 3 elements here, which is going to create a nice balance, a nice grouping. So here I've got something at the top, I've got something at the bottom corner. What else do we have to go? Well, I did leave a lot of room down here at the bottom of the photo. I like having this white space. It brightens up the dark tones of the photo, and it also gives me some space to do a little bit of journaling. And with the journaling, I'm using some alphabet stickers. And I really like these because you've got your lowercase, uppercase, numbers, and then you've also got some additional quotation marks or question marks, that kind of thing, your punctuation. So I've pulled off the letters to spell Vietnam to have that go across the bottom. It happened to fit just perfectly on there. I do have a little trick when you're trying to align those letters. So if you're like me, you find that you're pulling off a letter and then you're trying to sort of figure out where it's going to go, and to spell something out can be really tricky. So what I'm going to do is one of my shortcuts here. Hi, Debbie. Debbie is watching us from Florida. Hope you're doing well, Debbie. Thanks for joining. What I like to do is align everything onto the edge of a clear plastic ruler. And so when I get everything lined up on here, and I've just got the very tip of those letters on there, this makes it much easier to figure out, first of all, where I have space, and also how I can get this positioned in the center. So I don't start out with my letters and then realize I get, 2/3 of the way and it's like things aren't going to fit. So then what I can do is position this down. I think this is fairly even. And kind of walk away my ruler and get those elements in place. Okay, just for the A. And this is a nice way to make sure that your pieces are going to fit in the space that you have allotted for them, and make sure that they're more or less lined up. It's an easier trick for me to do it with my ruler than with just going sticker by sticker. So hopefully that is a handy little tip. Okay, so I've got the word Vietnam down on here. And then I also wanted to add in some additional journaling with this as being my title. Let me bring this back in and we can see again. I've got this all kind of running together as one main title, but I'm mixing not only my ephemera and my stickers, I've also got some computer journaling in here too. So here I've got the word war, which I have as an ephemera piece. So I'm going to incorporate that. But then I also wanted to mention that the theme of the page was the letters or the correspondence from. So let's talk about this process, this technique. And I'm going to unbury. I've got lots of things laying around in my work surface here. I don't know how it is with you guys, but no matter how big my table is or how much room I have, I never seem to have enough room. Okay, so I'm going to start out first of all with just a plain piece of computer paper, and I've typewritten my text on here, so letters from the, and I knew that I wanted to put it in a little cutting die shape, so I've got a label die. So I've made sure that my font is going to fit in there. It's the right font that I wanted to use. I experimented with half a dozen different typewriter style fonts, script fonts, and I found that this one worked the best. And so I've got this positioned in here, and I know that it's going to fit inside my label die. So I've printed this out, and then what I'm going to do is take some of that cardstock, and I'm going to position it so that I'm able to do my computer printing onto the smooth side. So not the textured side. Remember, it's a double-sided cardstock, textured on one, smooth on the other side. And I'm going to position this here. I want it smooth so that the letters stand out nicely. And I will tape this down using some washi tape or low tack tape. So it's going to look like this. Now, a trick if you have an old and sort of moody printer like I do, make sure you get that tape on there really securely. You don't have any like edges curling up. Otherwise, it will jam your printer, and then you have a really fun Sunday afternoon activity like I did last weekend. So it involves the whole family trying to unjam this printer. So secure this down really well, and then you won't have any trouble with that. Run it through your printer again, and then you will have this printed out. You can pull this off, take your die, and run this through your die cutting machine. And then we'll have a piece like this. So it's die cut, and it's got your words on there exactly where you want them to go. Where's the rest of my page here? Okay. And I've added this, of course, I've got this on some foam tape so that, again, I get a little bit of dimension on there. And I'm going to incorporate this into my journaling. Okay, I'm going to pop this right down here, right on top of that photo. And then I can take the word war. This is an ephemera piece, also up on foam tape, and pop this down here, be also overlapping. So now you can see my title is reading through like so. So I've incorporated 3 different fonts in here too, but they all are a nice, easy to read font. So I've got the typewriter font, I've got this really nice large all capital letters, and then another version of a typewriter font down here with our bottom portion too. Okay, what else do I have? I've got the top part of my title here. So some more of our ephemera pieces. So I've got remembering and history, also foam tape. I go through a lot of foam tape for card making and for scrapbooking. I just really like having the depth on here. Makes it look really dimensional, gives it some movement to the page. And history is our last piece. Let's see if I can get this off. Okay. And then position this in like so. And that's the final portion of our page. So I've got my large photo, small shaped photo. I've got my memorabilia holder with this fun folded envelope. Also some really nice journaling that I'm able to incorporate. And this also, I think, makes for a really nice 1/2 to a double-sided or double page spread. So I've got some additional photos, which I can also include, going on the other side there too, which would be really nice. And I think incorporating all of these various elements, I really like how it's set up the photos of my dad and created a really nice story pretty cleanly and easily. Not a whole lot of extra fancy stuff going on, but I've got some nice ephemera in here, and it just feels like a really nice tribute to my dad. So this is the page that we made. I'm going to point out on the original that I did add a little bit of jute twine in here, which is something that you can do if you like to have maybe a little bit more softness in there as well. So I hope you enjoyed our heritage scrapbooking time together. I really enjoyed making this page, and I enjoyed being here with you today. And I think that we've also got some information I can see on the chat, the invitation to our crafting community to make their own heritage scrapbook page. We've got all of the details in the chat, which is really nice. I love making scrapbook pages, but I have to say, I also really love seeing what other people come up with. So I really hope that everybody can join in. You can make any size page you want. You can make use any of the materials that you have on hand. Show us a little bit of your family history and your family heritage. We would love to see. So all of the details are included in our chat on here. And it's been wonderful to be with you guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Debbie. You can see the rest of the folks there too. I'm going to switch up my camera again. Say a proper goodbye to you. Thank you for being here with us today. I'm going to include a couple of photos of the page that I did as well so that you can get a closer look at that too. A big thank you to the lovely folks over at Arden for inviting us all to join in on this really special project as we're looking ahead to November, Remembrance Day, Veterans Day, and just a wonderful time of the year to honor those who came before us. So a big thank you so much. Lovely to see folks jumping in and joining us today. And if you're watching us on the replay, thanks again for being with us here. So do take care, everybody, and I will see you again. I think the next time I'm on is early November. I think November 6th is the date, and I will be back with some more heritage scrapbooking for us to look at, maybe with a slightly different theme. All righty, everybody, take care, and I will see you again soon.